Hello everybody and welcome back. Today we are talking about USS Kidd, a soon-to-be arriving Tier 8 premium US destroyer. Now before I get into it, do keep in mind that this is a work-in-progress ship, which means things can and will change before she makes it onto the live release. And second, the ship was provided by Wargaming for testing purposes. So without much further hesitation, let's get going. So, the Kidd. If you want the too long, didn't watch version, this ship has just zero, in my opinion, carry potential. Not really a very good ship at all. Quick rundown of the stats comparison to, let's say, the Benson. You got 16,700 HP, which is definitely more than what the Benson gets. However, you also happen to be a bigger ship, which means you are easier to hit. So is that HP advantage really anything major? Hard to say. Not really, in my personal opinion. Maybe an extra shell or two there, here and there. That's probably going to be it. Your guns. You do have 527mm 38 caliber guns. These are the same guns that the Fletcher gets because you're basically a Fletcher that's a tier down. In terms of stats, 3.3 second reload time, 1800 HE damage, 5% chance of fire, which is exactly the same as you're going to get with a Benson. You have 12.1 kilometer range, which is a little bit more than what the Benson gets without AFT. But again, you know, with the destroyers the way they are right now, maybe AFT isn't all that useful. Yeah, it's debatable, I guess. Same sort of floaty USN arcs, you know, shooting things at a distance is doable if you have enough practice, but not exactly the most comfortable thing. Alright, so the guns are pretty good, right? But then, you know, the guns are the same as the Benson, so it really doesn't stand out. So what is different? Well, primarily what's different is the USS Kidd is like a more AA-focused destroyer. So she does get nicer AA, and she gets access to defensive fire without having to sacrifice a gun turret. That's her advantage over the Benson, at least when it comes to AA. And it makes me think that the ship might be more useful in a team play competitive format. Maybe. That's really, I think, all that she's good for. If you're buying the ship and then, let's say, playing it in randoms, you're going to get very little, I think, out of it. I played her and I did not find her enjoyable at all. And the big reason for that is, one, in randoms, you don't run into carriers all that much. So that whole advantage that your ship has doesn't really materialize in a lot of the battles you play in randoms. That's the first thing. And second of all, you have to give up one entire quintuple torpedo launcher for access to this slightly better AA. So your torpedoes, they're not Fletcher torps, they're Benson torpedoes. You get one quintuple launcher, 122 second reload, 16,633 damage, 9.2 kilometer torpedoes, and they're not all that fast either, going 55 knots. They do have that good torpedo detect range of 1.1 kilometers, but again, Benson torpedoes, not Fletchers. And you're really gonna find that you lack that carrying potential that a Benson itself might have, just because you cannot output the kind of damage output with torpedoes, which are, you know, a huge part of what makes the Benson a nice, you know, ship. She's got a balanced set of guns and torpedo firepower that, you know, if a battleship decides to screw up and show you too much, with the Benson you can punish them really badly. With this ship, you can land 3 out of your 5 torpedoes, essentially a 60% hit rate for that salvo that you fired, and a battleship is just gonna go, meh, 3 torpedoes, they can survive that if they're, you know, at a reasonably healthy state. Which, you know, if I was in a Benson, it's like, no, that battleship would have been completely dead. Which means that, again, in randoms, if you can't kill stuff outright, you're just not gonna have that potential to carry battles by yourself. So yeah, problems with the Kidd already, right? She is reasonably speedy, 38 knot speed, so yeah, she's fast, so that's a positive. Oh, and by the way, right, so losing one of the quintuple launchers also removes your ability to really wall and create these nice walls of torpedoes to go into smoke. It's a very, very small wall, and it's reasonably easy to dodge. In fact, of all the times I think I fired into smoke, I've only managed to hit one torpedo out of all the battles I played. And I played quite a bit because I was trying to really hard to make the ship work, and it's just, no, not at all. In terms of agility, turning circle radius 620 meters compared to 570 on Benson. So again, you are a bigger ship with bigger turning radius. You know, still, I think, an easier target to hit, which means that, again, that HP advantage I was talking about earlier, not really there. But you do have pretty good surface concealment, 5.8 kilometers, which means in a lot of cases you do tend to get the drop on other ships, with exceptions of certain destroyers, like, say, the Yugamo. Everything else, you're pretty much going to get the drop on them, so that is good. But again, like I said, your torpedoes, you just don't have enough of them to really deal with stuff in smoke as well as if you would, you know, with the full 10 torpedo complement that the Benson would have. Other problems, of course, you know, now you don't really get that stealth fire thing anymore. So if you open fire, that 12.1 kilometer range, it actually might not be an advantage. Again, you immediately turn your detection range to the max range of your gun. So all of a sudden, you know, you're that much more easier to detect. So, you know, better range, sure, that means you can sort of stay at a little bit bigger of a distance while engaging. But at the same time, if you're in a close-in fight, you shoot, everything within 12.1 kilometers is going to spot you if you're within their line of sight. So, yeah, I'm not impressed at all by the ship. I've heard people say she's more like a Benson than like a Fletcher, but that's not a very good comparison, because honestly, the Benson is a better ship, like at least in terms of random battles. Again, competitive is its own thing with its own unique requirements, and I think that potentially Kidd might have an interesting purpose in competitive, with the fact that, you know, she still has that nice gunfire power along with that defensive fire, meaning that she can deal better with carriers. So yeah, I guess, you know, like I said, in competitive there's more purpose to the ship, but in randoms it's just god awful. Like this made me so angry yesterday. Like this Bismarck over here, if I had a Benson, I would have 2 sets of torpedoes going right now, right? That would have been 10 torpedoes. That Bismarck would have been mine. I would have killed him. Instead, because I only have 1 set, I will hit the Bismarck, and the Bismarck is going to be like, yep, I took damage there, but I'm still alive. And that's what's so aggravating about Kidd, is it's like, when you really need that damage, you just don't have it. And again, like in randoms, again, please keep in mind that when I'm talking about the ship right now, it's my experience with her in randoms, right? I haven't been able to take her into any sort of competitive format at all, so can't really give you a perfectly clear image on how she's going to perform there. But, you know, just watch this. It's like perfectly good torpedo salvo. I would have killed this Bismarck if I had a second set going there. Instead, doesn't get killed, doesn't die, hits the repair, and gets behind the island, survives for quite a bit longer. And of course, now that the Bismarck not dying, I have to now deal with the ship being there. I can't go ahead and play a situation slightly differently. It's just, it was aggravating to no end. And I had this on more than one occasion as well, where, you know, either the torpedo wall was too small and somebody just barely scraped by, and had I had a bigger torpedo wall, would definitely have hit. Or when I do hit, it's just there wasn't enough damage there, and the ship will just drive you insane that way. Yeah, the guns are pretty good, but it doesn't compensate for the complete lack, really, of sort of torpedo hitting power. So, what kind of changes would I like to see on the ship? Wow, first of all, that's not an easy question to answer. I understand what Wargaming was trying to do with the ship. Trying to make it an AA destroyer. Like, I see what they were trying to do, but they just gimped it way too much. Maybe if they tried, like, USS Black philosophy with, like, high damage torpedoes in a single salvo, maybe that could work. Hell, maybe give it Fletcher torpedoes, like the single set, and give it just that range and that damage on one set. But even then, again, like, a lot of the times the problem is the wall is too small, the torpedoes are too easily dodged, and it doesn't really make up for that. Yeah, so not impressed. Like, not impressed at all whatsoever. Perhaps another thing might be torpedo reload booster. But again, like, see that we're again talking about these gimmicky things. So yeah, I mean, that's the preview of the USS Kidd so far. A really, really subpar destroyer, with so little carry potential. Actually, I could even argue that the ship has like zero carrying potential. I mean, I've played Benson quite a bit. I've played Fletcher quite a bit, and those ships, they all are able to at least in some situations carry the battle. And with Kidd, it doesn't happen. You know, no matter how hard I try, there are just times where like you just can't carry. She just doesn't allow you to output enough damage to do it. So yeah, that pretty much does it for the preview of the USS Kidd. I mean, now that you've seen sort of the early look at her, what do you think? Let me know in the comments section below. In terms of the results from that battle, by the way, there you go. 78,000 damage, got a couple of torpedo hits, sunk one ship, got some flooding, capped one cap. Base experience, was top of the team, 1,104 on a loss. So, you know, it's top of the team, but like, I wasn't thrilled by, I mean, I've played this ship a whole bunch of times. I was really trying to get it to work, but it just never worked at all. And yeah, it's just pretty awful in our current state. And I would say if it was just for random purposes, avoid. Anyways, folks, take care. Have yourselves a good one. And I'll talk to all of you again soon.